Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of PLM podcast where yes, we know the season has already begun. Well, the curtain raiser has already happened. Let's give another quick summary or recap of exactly how the 2020 and 2021 season went. This podcast we will talk about and remind you all about how the season went, as well as a quick summary of what happened during the season, at least the things that I remember as a Premier League fan. So we will talk about three things. One is obviously what exactly happened during this season, and we have put up a very beautiful graph of exactly how the season looked like. It wasn't one of the best seasons, but it was one of the seasons which came up with nice storylines. So we'll talk about that, as well as there were few managers whom we wished goodbye forever. We'll talk about that as well. And before we talk about the season, actually, let's talk about some of the background, some of the storylines before the season. Storylines during the season is one thing, but storylines of which before the season started is another thing. So what were those storylines? Season started with a peculiar background, and that's why you see that dreaded COVID virus in between, and that's because it still hasn't gone away. It still is out there. Everybody was how 2020 and 2021 season will look like. So it really kind of started with a peculiar background of the COVID-19. The other question that everyone had in their minds was exactly how the Liverpool will fare for the second season. Well, they had their maiden championship in 2019-2020 season, but the real question was, will that be just a one season wonder, or they will be able to repeat their history? Remember, only few teams have been able to do back-to-back titles in Premier League history in the last 2 decades. Chelsea had a very big investment into young players. Got a lot of young imports from outside, especially Germany. There was Timo Werner, there was Hakim Ziyech, as well as the existing stars Mason Mount that they already had. So the question really was, with the world-class forward arriving at their place and with Kai Havertz as well, will Lampard be able to integrate them well enough and quickly so that he can get the results that the owners expect in Chelsea? That was other big question. Manchester United were a very different team in the second half of 2019-2020 season after Bruno Fernandes arrived. So now with the full season, exactly how Manchester United will perform, as well as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the perennial questions on his managerial skills were always there. So what will happen to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Manchester United's performance? Tottenham under Jose Mourinho will always be the ones who will give you a fight for top 4 finish. Well, at one time Mourinho used to be title finish, but definitely he drives them towards some kind of cup as well as top finishes. Arsenal, thrown out of the top 4 positions, will they come back roaring or not? Who will reign supreme in the North London chaos? Yes, I'm talking about the Tottenham as well as Mikel Arteta's Arsenal, as well as Bielsa, though everyone had their eyes on Bielsa's magic, and when Leeds got promoted, everybody was questioning, well, championship is one thing, but exactly how the Bielsa magic will run in the Premier League against the big weights. All these kind of questions laid, for unraveling as the season began. So let's talk about now the season itself. How did the season go? How the season went really can be summarized in what I am showing you out here. Well, as you can see, this was exactly how the season panned out. It started off with a buzz. It started off with Everton doing really well. Everton really did start well, and it was only when the season went beyond, like somewhere around the mid stage, that Everton season started to fall, and City, who were somewhere in the mid-table at that moment, really started picking up the results after that. So if you see really City, when did they start picking up the results? They weren't even first until 18th. It was only after round 18 that they came up, and obviously the talk of the whole season was Liverpool, and we'll talk more about that as well, what were the key storylines. But if you see the graph, you would see that Liverpool, who were at number 3, weren't even supposed to be there. It was supposed to be Leicester City's to lose, because if you see, Leicester City were perennial number 3s since the mid stage of the season. They were never below 3rd until the very last few rounds of the season. Next thing that we should be talking about in terms of the whole season is the relegation. It was the most boring relegation fights of the season. At one point, if you see in the graph, there definitely was some fight that was out there between the bottom clubs as well as the three that got relegated. But eventually, it was the Sheffield United's, the West Brom, and the Fulham who got relegated, and no one even came close to them. This was kind of at a very high level how the season looked like. So let's now talk about exactly what the key storylines were. Well, again, I would like to say that if you think these are any different, any comments, feedback in terms of what we should consider as the key storyline or highlight of the season, we would love to include those as well. So the first one was Allison's header. Well, this has to be the turning point for Liverpool. Liverpool were downright out. They were not winning. They were out of top 4, top 5, and everyone had given up on them being into the Champions League. But yes, they came back, and what proved to be crucial was Allison's header that saved the season. After mid-table, like we talked about, Manchester City turned around the season and came up with a string of wins, very narrow wins. This wasn't the best performance that City gave in terms of goal-scoring abilities, but this was the most clinical performance that they gave, where few goals here and there made a difference for them in winning the match. Newcastle United, in fact, played a very key role in determining the top 4, whether it was versus Liverpool or whether it was Leicester City. Their victories, their results their results were key in giving the top 4 that we had in the season. The next key storyline was Thomas Tuchel and Tottenham saved Chelsea's season. Well, Tottenham played a big role in saving Chelsea's season. Chelsea was supposed to be going from up to losing out on the top 4, and in fact at one point lost the FA Cup, and every eye was that from being a hero, Thomas Tuchel was being considered as a zero, with nobody giving him any chance against Manchester City in Champions League final, nobody giving him a chance to be in the top 4. But yes, he definitely saved the season after the mid-table ruins that Lampard left him with. Arsenal, West Ham, Everton and Aston Villa season. Well, I want to talk about them because it promised a lot, especially with Aston Villa's Jack Grealish, Everton's James Rodriguez, with West Ham playing its brilliant football with a brilliant attack-minded team, as well as Arsenal and Mikel Arteta. The kind of cup victories that they got early in the season as well as in the previous season, it was expected that these clubs will at least be giving a good fight for the top 4, but unfortunately none of that happened. Leeds, well, yes, the storyline of Leeds continued. We got answers to Bielsa football, the magic runs, the one way of attacking football, fast-paced, quick counter-attack football, delivered very electric football against all the Premier League clubs. Who can forget the opening day against Liverpool? And yes, while I don't want to talk about the upcoming season which starts next week, I do want to talk about the fact that we are in for more electric football this season with Bielsa still at the helms. And then finally, Sheffield United and Super League shocked us. Who would have thought in this season we would come out with a story where we will see those top 6 greedy clubs for only the last time? Well, thankfully, the fan power ran over it and made sure that Super League never exists, and that saved our English Premier League. Sheffield United, after such a beautiful season that they had the prior 2019-2020, who would have thought in the next season Chris Wilder will be gone and Sheffield United will be relegated? So these were the summary lines, these were the storylines that we thought should be worth remembering for 2020-2021 season. Next, we want to talk about the managerial exits. So there were all in all 7 managerial exits, which included Frank Lampard. Obviously, we expect some of them to be back. We definitely expect the careers of Frank Lampard, Chris Wilder, Slaven Bilic, Sam Allardyce. Well, Roy Hodgson would definitely be into the retirement now, but the other ones, like for example, Nuno is already back with Tottenham. These were the managerial exits which happened during the season. Finally, I want to talk about the fact that 2021-2022 season is coming right next week, and there is so much to talk about in terms of the newly promoted clubs. We have Brentford coming up for its maiden season. How will it perform? So that is something that I would like to cover in the next video. So stay tuned and thank you and take good care. Bye bye.